lots happening this week. And I think the things that's dominating the headlines are these protests that we see at Prime Minister Trudeau's campaign events. It's a lot of heat. Prime Minister Trudeau is calling these folks the anti-vaxxer mob. I watched the footage. There's a lot of swearing. I know we touched upon this with last week's panel. He was even at one point pelted with gravel, which is atrocious. But what do you, like, where do we even start with this? I have never seen anything like this in Canada. Elliot, what are your thoughts?
Well, tensions are very high right now, it seems, on the campaign trail around vaccines, vaccine mandates, and so on. And, you know, what we're seeing, the kind of protests we're seeing against Justin Trudeau, I think have stepped over the line in some cases. Look, everyone agrees that there's a right to protest, and that's an important part of our democracy, and the ability to do that is you know, important to sort of what we stand for as a society. But there does come a point where it's sort of gone beyond, and I think that's where we find ourselves now with some of the pieces against Trudeau. I think what's interesting is Aaron O'Toole finds himself in a little bit of a rock and a hard place here. He has come out and said these protests, you know, are beyond the pale appropriately. The challenge is frankly, some of the supporters of sort of the anti-mask, anti-vaccine are some of those conservative voters that he's trying to get, and he's being squeezed by the PPC, and you've seen a rise in their polling numbers the last couple of days. Those are, I think you can probably make the assumption, directly moving from the Conservatives to the PPC. So he finds himself in a very difficult place here.
Now, can we actually say that these people are anti-mask, anti-vaccine? Like, I've listened to some of the chants. People, like, I watch on Twitter the footage from raw footage, and I listen to what people are saying. And you have, obviously, expletives. I'm not going to repeat those, obviously. But then you have people yelling. And I think this is important because I want to know what people are actually complaining about. And they say, no two-tier state. We don't want a two-tier system. And obviously, they're talking about the vaccine mandates, the vaccine passports. Are these people really, these alleged anti-vaxxers, are these really conservative-leaning voters? David, what do you think?
Yeah, so I would say that, I mean, there are certainly a good portion of them who would be probably deserving of that title of anti-vaxxer. It is a very useful way to dismiss the entire audience at once. Politically, I can understand why Trudeau would use that term, just because it very easily dismisses whatever their concerns are. I don't necessarily share their concerns, and I think that the way in which some of these protests have gone have been atrocious. I think the real question for me that has left me scratching my head is, why is he not better protected? He's the prime minister of this country. I can't understand whether that's a decision made on the campaign trail. I mean, I think back to when Harper was facing real threats, and he had, I believe it was former or ex-military personnel who were acting as his bodyguards. Obviously, the threats against Trudeau are real. And so I think beyond the partisanship of this election, there's a serious question about the safety of the prime minister. And I think a lot has to be done to ensure that he is safe, regardless of whether you agree with him or not.
Right. No, and that's a fair point. I think it must be challenging. And, you know, I've been campaigning as a politician, attempted politician myself. You want to be with the people. This is your time where you're supposed to be, you know, shaking people's hands and kissing babies. Obviously, COVID, not as much of that, but you're supposed to be going and meeting the people where they are. If you have a wall of security around you, how do you achieve that? So, I mean, we don't have to go into the intricacies of campaign detail and whatnot, but there is a practical element. I agree with you that he, you know, it is our prime minister. He should be better protected, but pebbles, like they threw pebbles at the guy. It was horrible.
I mean, a very simple solution here would just be to find whoever it was and arrest them and charge them with the appropriate crime. And the same goes for the person who egged Maxime Bernier. That type of stuff, although the level of violence there is certainly not the same, those people deserve to be charged and punished for the crimes that they've committed. That would certainly go a long way in terms of sending a message that, hey, you can't just pick up a rock and throw it at the prime minister, let alone anybody. So that would probably help. Whether or not that happens, I'm not sure. Well, we haven't seen that really progress yet. Yeah,
assault is assault. So it doesn't matter who it comes down to, whether it's the prime minister or common man. That really needs to be dealt with.